Make sure that you're listening closely. Make sure so that when we get to the comprehension questions, you do not have to look too far back in the book. You should be listening closely enough and paying attention and thinking as you read so that when you get to the comprehension questions, you really only have to look back in the book to get the specific small details or maybe the spelling of something. But you shouldn't have to go back into the book to find the answer. The answer should already be in your head. Make sure you're listening to me, not tuning me out. The answer should already be in your head when you're writing it. It's just maybe you have to go back just to get a small detail or to spell a name or something correctly. But you should not be relying on your book to find the answers to the questions once it's time. Try to use your book, to open your book as little as possible while reading. Okay, go ahead and open your book to page 41. Make sure that you're following along. Use your finger to help. Make sure that you're sitting up straight. Your book is on your desk. Can be tilted up a little, but should not be all the way up like this, and should definitely not be covering your face. Okay. Chapter 15, Around the Room. Miss Petosa told us a little about who she was. It was boring stuff about where she originally came from and how she always wanted to teach, and she left her job on Wall Street about 6 years ago to pursue her dream and teach kids. She ended by asking if anyone had any questions, and Julian raised his hand. Yes, she had to look at the list to remember his name. Julian. That's cool about how you're pursuing your dream, he said. Thank you. You're welcome, he smiled proudly. Okay, so why don't you tell us a little about yourself, Julian? Actually, here's what I want everyone to do. Think of 2 things you want other people to know about you. Well, actually, wait a minute. How many of you came from the Beecher Lower School? About half the kids raised their hand. Okay, so a few of you already know each other, but the rest of you, I guess, are new to the school, right? Okay, so everyone think of 2 things you want other people to know about you. And if you know some of the other kids, try to think of things they don't already know about you. Okay? Okay. So let's start with Julian, and we'll go around the room. Julian scrunched up his face and started tapping his forehead like he was thinking really hard. Okay, whenever you're ready, Miss Petosa said. Okay, so number 1 is that, do me a favor and start with your names, okay? Miss Petosa interrupted. It'll help me remember everyone. Oh, okay. So my name is Julian, and the number 1 thing I'd like to tell everyone about myself is that I just got Battleground Mystic for my Wii, and it's totally awesome. And the number 2 thing is that we got a ping pong table this summer. Very nice. I love ping pong, said Miss Petosa. Does anyone have any questions for Julian? Is Battleground Mystic multiplayer or 1 player? Said the kid named Miles. Not those kinds of questions, guys, said Miss Petosa. Okay, so how about you? She pointed to Charlotte, probably because her desk was closest to the front. Oh, sure. Charlotte didn't hesitate for even a second, like she knew exactly what she wanted to say. My name is Charlotte. I have 2 sisters, and we just got a new puppy named Suki in July. We got her from an animal shelter, and she's so cute. That's great, Charlotte. Thank you, said Miss Petosa. Okay, then, who's next? Chapter 16, Lamb to the Slaughter. Like a lamb to the slaughter. Something that you say about someone who goes somewhere calmly, not knowing that something unpleasant is going to happen to them. I Googled it last night. That's what I was thinking when Miss Petosa called my name, and suddenly it was my turn to talk. My name is August, I said, and yeah, I kind of mumbled it. What? Said someone. Can you speak up, honey? Said Miss Petosa. My name is August, I said, louder, forcing myself to look up. I have a sister named Via and a dog named Daisy, and That's it. Wonderful, said Miss Petosa. Anyone have questions for August? No one said anything. Okay, you're next, said Miss Petosa to Jack. Wait, I have a question for August, said Julian, raising his hand. Why do you have that tiny braid in the back of your hair? Is that like a Padawan thing? Yeah, I nodded. What's a Padawan thing? Said Miss Petosa, smiling at me. It's from Star Wars, answered Julian. A Padawan is a Jedi apprentice. Oh, interesting, answered Miss Petosa, looking at me. So are you into Star Wars, August? I guess, I nodded, not looking up because what I really wanted was just to slide under the desk. Who's your favorite character? Julian asked. I started thinking maybe he wasn't so bad. Jango Fett. What about Darth Sidious? He said. Do you like him? Okay, guys, you can talk about Star Wars stuff at recess, said Miss Petosa cheerfully. But let's keep going. We haven't heard from you yet, she said to Jack. Now it was Jack's turn to talk, but I admit I didn't hear a word he said. Maybe no one got the Darth Sidious thing, and maybe Julian didn't mean anything at all. But in Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Darth Sidious's face gets burned by Sith lightning and becomes totally deformed. His skin gets all shriveled up and his whole face just kind of melts. I peeked at Julian and he was looking at me. Yeah, he knew what he was saying. Chapter 17, Choose Kind. There was a lot of shuffling around when the bell rang and everyone got up to leave. I checked my schedule and it said my next class was English, room 321. I didn't stop to see if anyone else from my homeroom was going my way. I just zoomed out of the class and down the hall and sat down as far from the front as possible. The teacher, a really tall man with a yellow beard, was writing on the chalkboard. Bless you. Kids came in laughing and talking in little groups, but I didn't look up. Basically, the same thing that happened in homeroom happened again. No one sat next to me except for Jack, who was joking around with some kids who weren't in our homeroom. I could tell Jack was the kind of kid other kids like. He had a lot of friends. He made people laugh. When the second bell rang, everyone got quiet and the teacher turned around and faced us. He said his name was Mr. Brown, and then he started talking about what we would be doing this semester. At a certain point, somewhere between A Wrinkle in Time and Shen of the Sea, he noticed me but kept right on talking. I was mostly doodling in my notebook while he talked, but every once in a while I would sneak a look at the other students. Charlotte was in this class. So were Julian and Henry. Miles wasn't. Mr. Brown had written on the chalkboard in big block letters, P-R-E-C-E-P-T. Okay, everybody write this down at the very top of the very first page in your English notebook. As we did what he told us to do, he said, okay, so who can tell me what a precept is? Does anyone know? No one raised their hands. Mr. Brown smiled, nodded, and turned around to write on the chalkboard again. Precepts equal rules about really important things. Like a motto? Someone called out. Like a motto, said Mr. Brown, nodding as he continued writing on the board. Like a famous quote, like a line from a fortune cookie. Any saying or ground rule that can motivate you. Basically, a precept is anything that helps guide us when making decisions about really important things. He wrote all that on the chalkboard and then turned around and faced us. So what are some really important things? He asked us. A few kids raised their hands, and as he pointed at them, they gave their answers, which he wrote on the chalkboard in really, really sloppy handwriting. Rules, schoolwork, homework. What else? He said as he wrote, not even turning around. Just call things out. He wrote everything everyone called out. Family, parents, pets. One girl called out, the environment. The environment. He wrote on the chalkboard and added, our world. Sharks, because they eat dead things in the ocean, said one of the boys, a kid named Reed, and Mr. Brown wrote down, sharks. Bees, seatbelts, recycling, friends. Okay, said Mr. Brown, writing all these things down. He turned around when he finished writing to face us again. But no one's named the most important thing of all. We all looked at him, out of ideas. God? Said one kid. And I could tell that even though Mr. Brown wrote God down, that wasn't the answer he was looking for. Without saying anything else, he wrote down who we are. Who we are, he said, underlining each word as he said it. Who we are, us, right? What kind of people are we? What kind of person are you? Isn't that the most important thing of all? Isn't that the kind of question we should be asking ourselves all the time? What kind of person am I? Did anyone happen to notice the plaque next to the door of the school? Anyone read what it says? Anyone? He looked around, but no one knew the answer. It says, "Know thyself," he said, smiling and nodding. And learning who you are is what you're here to do. I thought we were here to learn English, Jack cracked, which made everyone laugh. Oh yeah, that too, Mr. Brown answered, which I thought was very cool of him. Make sure you're following along as we're reading. Oh yeah, that too, Mr. Brown answered, which I thought was very cool of him. He turned around and wrote in big, huge block letters that spread all the way across the chalkboard, Mr. Brown's September precept. When given the choice between being right or being kind, choose kind. Okay, so everybody, he said, facing us again, I want you to start a brand new section in your notebooks and call it Mr. Brown's Precepts. He kept talking as we did what he was telling us to do. Put today's date at the top of the first page, and from now on, at the beginning of every month, I'm going to write a new Mr. Brown precept on the chalkboard, and you're going to write it down in your notebook. Then we're going to discuss that precept and what it means. And at the end of the month, you're going to write an essay about it, about what it means to you. So by the end of the year, you'll have your own list of precepts to take away with you. Over the summer, I ask all my students to come up with their very own personal precept. Write it on a postcard and mail it to me from wherever you go on your summer vacation. People really do that? Said one girl whose name I didn't know. Oh yeah, he answered. People really do that. I've had students send me new precepts years after they've graduated from this school, actually. It's pretty amazing. He paused and stroked his beard. But anyway, next summer seems like a really long way off, I know, he joked, which made us laugh. So everybody relax a bit while I take attendance, and then when we're finished with that, I'll start telling you about all the fun stuff we're going to be doing this year in English. He pointed to Jack when he said this, which was also funny. So we all laughed at that. As I wrote down Mr. Brown's September precept, I suddenly realized that I was going to like school, no matter what. Chapter 18, Lunch. Via had warned me about lunch in middle school, so I guess I should have known it would be hard. I just hadn't expected it to be this hard. Basically, all the kids from all the 5th grade classes poured into the cafeteria at the same time, talking loudly and bumping into one another while they ran to different tables. One of the lunchroom teachers said something about no seat saving, but I didn't know what she meant, and maybe no one else did either, because just about everybody was saving seats for their friends. I tried to sit down at one table, but the kid in the next chair said, "Oh, sorry, but someone else is sitting here." So I moved to an empty table and just waited for everyone to finish stampeding and the lunchroom teacher to tell us what to do next. As she started telling us the cafeteria rules, I looked around to see where Jack Will was sitting, but I didn't see him on my side of the room. Kids were still coming in as the teacher started calling the first few tables to get their trays and stand in line at the counter. Julian, Henry, and Miles were sitting at a table toward the back of the room. Mom had packed me a cheese sandwich, graham crackers, and a juice box, so I didn't need to stand in line when my table was called. Instead, I just concentrated on opening my backpack, pulling out my lunch bag, and slowly opening the aluminum foil wrapping of my sandwich. I could tell I was being stared at without even looking up. I knew that people were nudging each other, watching me out of the corners of their eyes. I thought I was used to those kinds of stares by now, but I guess I wasn't. There was one table of girls that I knew were whispering about me because they were talking behind their hands. Their eyes and whispers kept bouncing over to me. I hate the way I eat. I know how weird it looks. I had a surgery to fix my cleft palate when I was a baby, and then a second cleft palate surgery when I was 4. But I still have a hole in the roof of my mouth. And even though I had jaw alignment surgery a few years ago, I have to chew food in the front of my mouth. I didn't even realize how this looked until I was at a birthday party once, and one of the kids told the mom of the birthday boy he didn't want to sit next to me because I was too messy with all the food crumbs shooting out of my mouth. I know the kid wasn't trying to be mean, but he got in big trouble later, and his mom called my mom that night to apologize. When I got home from the party, I went to the bathroom mirror and started eating a saltine cracker to see what I looked like when I was chewing. The kid was right. I eat like a tortoise, if you've ever seen a tortoise eating, like some prehistoric swamp thing. Okay, close your book. So one more time. Just because your answer is right does not mean it's good, because you need to add detail. Make sure that you fully answer the question before you use text evidence, because if you just say one quick little thing and then just copy down some of the sentences from the book, again, that's not necessarily a good answer. So put good thought into it, your thoughts into it before you use text evidence. How do you feel about these things? Why do you think this is happening? Why do you think this character feels this way? What do you think could happen next because of this? These are all things that you can ask yourself to come up with a good, well thought out, well written answer. So just because it says at least 2 complete sentences doesn't mean you finish 2 sentences and then stop. Because just because it's right doesn't mean it's good. And even if you have 2 sentences, if they are just the most basic, most quickly written answers, well then you're still going to lose points and I'm going to write more detail. Add details. When you answer these questions, you are answering them as if you are telling somebody who has never heard of this book before what's going on. So that when they read your answer, they'll know exactly what's happening. They'll get an idea. They'll feel what you should feel as you read this. So, use correct grammar. As you've been looking at your graded journals, you've probably seen -1/2, -1/2, -1/2. That's because your grammar is incorrect. It says near that why it's incorrect. Please make sure that you're listening and not zoning out. Use correct grammar. You do lose points for that. Use text evidence when needed. But do not rely on the text evidence to give you those 2 sentences or to fully answer the question. Because text evidence is what the book says. I want to know what you think. But you can include what the book says to tell me why you think that. Write the question with the number. Some of you are not doing this and you're losing points for that. Skip 1 line. Some of you are skipping like 4 lines. You're going to run out of space if you do that. Skip 1 line, 2 at the most. Write the answer. Then skip 1 line. Not 4, not 5, not 6. 1. Write the next question with the number. Do not forget to number your questions. Skip 1 line, not 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. Write the answer, and so on. Because you may have, then repeat that, because you may have to do it a couple times. Make sure that you are really thinking. You are given so much time because you're coming up with really good answers. Good answers don't happen like that. Ethan, pay attention, please. Good answers do not happen like that. Good answers take time. Like I said yesterday, this year, you do not just get to write something and be done, like it was last year. This year, you have to think about it. So think about the question before you answer, but it should not be taking you 5 minutes to think about the question. Before you write one answer, one bit of the answer, think about the question. What is the question asking me? What do I need to write a good answer? Once you've thought about that, start writing your answer. As you write the answer, think about what you're writing. Does it make sense? Does it answer the question being asked? Does it have good grammar? Are my letters written correctly? Are my short letters taking up half the line? Are my tall letters taking up the whole line? Do my letters with a tail, P's, a lot of you write capital P's every single time. I don't understand how almost a whole class can write capital P's every time. Make sure that your letters with a tail, like P, Y, G, what else? I think that's it. J. Make sure that they go below the line. They should take up half the line and then go below the line. Please do not put boxes around everything. Use the line skipping to show where one ends and the next one begins, not boxes, because then it just turns into a mess and then you're not skipping lines. You can't replace skipping lines with boxes. Start on the pink line. Start every word on the pink line. When you go to the next line, when you fill up one line and have to go to the next one, start on the pink line. Don't start way over here. Okay, so here are the questions. Listen, read the questions as I read them out loud. If you have any questions about them, I will answer. Number 1, what does Julian share about himself? What does Charlotte share about herself? Now these two parts of the question, they come right from the text. That means don't tell me text evidence about what it says. In your own words, tell me what they said about themselves. Then, what 2 things would you share about yourself? So then you get to say, I would say this, I would say this. Some of you are writing the questions and you're leaving off part of the question. Don't do that. You won't get away with it because I have the questions in front of me as I'm grading. So I know if you're leaving off part of the question just so you don't have to answer it. And you're losing 10 points for that each time. Number 2, explain how Julian was unkind to August after August introduced himself. What does this tell you about Julian? When we have a question that says, what does this tell you about blank? About whoever. You are looking at the situation and you're saying, what does that tell you about that person's personality? About what type of person they are. In detail. Don't just say, this tells me that they are happy. Well, why does that tell you that they're happy? What about that tells you that they're happy? Number 3, what is a precept? So, what is a precept? What is Mr. Brown's September precept? What do you think it means? So that means you have to tell what a precept is, write Mr. Brown's September precept, then tell what you think it means. Number 4, Mr. Brown has a plaque outside his room that says, know thyself. What does this, know thyself, mean to you? So you see these red lines? That means in your notebook, you do not have to write, Mr. Brown has a plaque outside his room that says, you are going to write, what does know thyself mean to you? Does everybody understand how to write that question in your notebook? Don't write, what does this mean to you? Write, what does know thyself mean to you? Number 5, how does August feel as lunchtime begins? So how does he feel? Why does he feel that way? Even though it doesn't say why, anytime you answer a question like this, how does this happen, or what happens here? You also have to say why. So you know what? I'll go ahead and ask that. I'll add that, I mean. So how does number 5 is how does August feel at lunchtime and as lunchtime begins, and why does he feel that way? So girls
Can
at
we
home,
add that too?
yes, girls at home, add that to number 5. How does August feel as lunchtime begins, and why? Number 6, why does August hate the way he eats? A good answer would describe how August eats, and then answer the question, why does August hate the way he eats? So like I said, I'll say it again. Victoria, you should not be writing right now. That's minus 5 points. So a good answer for number 6, why does August hate the way he eats, will describe how August eats, and then we'll answer that question. Why does he hate it? Does everybody understand the questions? Any questions about the questions? Okay, you will have 15 minutes to answer as many questions as you can. Do not rush and give a bunch of bad answers just to finish as many as you can. I would rather have 2 amazing answers than 6 meh answers. Does everybody understand? 6 meh answers is going to lose you like 5 to 10 points per question, which means 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. The highest you get is a 70. Or if they're really, really meh, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, which means the highest you could get is a 40. So make sure that you are giving good, full, complete answers so that you don't lose 5 to 10 points every time. A completely wrong answer is minus 10. A not so good answer is minus 5. That means not enough detail, not enough information, not enough thought is minus 5. Unless there's like no thought at all, then it's minus 10. Grammar mistakes are minus half every time. You start at 100 and then you go down by 5, 10, or half every time. Do you understand? Okay, when I say go, you will have 15 minutes. Once the 15 minutes are up, your hands will go into the air as soon as you hear that alarm. And then you will have 2 minutes to finish the question you're on and stack it on the back counter, or girls at home, put it somewhere where someone can scan it later. Remember, when you stack it on the back counter, front row goes in a stack, back row goes in a stack. Ethan, you'll be considered part of the front row for now, okay? Since you're kind of in the middle. So you'll put it on the front row stack when you turn it in. Okay, I hope you were listening and you are using what I said. Your time starts now. Make sure that as I look up at you, that you are working, not just sitting there doing nothing.